Maybe a bit more casual this one, I think. There we go. Episode 3. We're going to be talking about England's international football, women's and men's. Obviously, it's very topical, as England women's have just brought it home. First trophy for England, 50-odd years? 54 years?
56,
years?
I believe.
56 years. So, very topical. Talk about the England women's, then talk about England men's chances this year in the World Cup and where we see them at. Here with Mark and Richard again. Absolute stalwarts now. Wouldn't be the same without them. So, let's crack on, boys. Let's crack on.
Let's do it.
So,
yes, let's get on.
The first thing I want us to talk about, obviously, the game on Sunday. If I'm honest, I'm not a gigantic fan of women's football. For me, it just doesn't hold a torch to the men's. Like I watch it and I'm just like, the men's football would be more entertaining for me. I just can't seem to get my head around it. However, I am a fan of England winning anything, whether sport, whether it's sports I don't really watch. If England are doing well, then I'm happy about that. And to be fair, it was actually quite good to see England win at home, whether it be women's or men's. What did you two think about the game?
I'm a bit like, as you both know, I'm not really a massive football fan, full stop. However, like you guys, I like to see England do well. I watched the final, which I think it's the first time I've watched a women's game at all. And I enjoyed the game. I got very worried, obviously. We scored a goal.
Yeah.
Tended to lose the grasp of the game a bit, kept trying to do the long ball. And then when Germany equalised, I thought, here we go again.
Yeah, classic England, isn't it?
The same old story. Here we go again.
Mm.
But when the second goal went in, even though it was a messy goal, they all count, don't they? That's the thing. And I was glad. I mean, they deserved it. You could see they played with a lot of heart, and they wanted the win. And they've got a really good squad. Let's hope they can take it further and get the World Cup and bring that back home.
Yeah.
I think I've watched a lot more of the women's football compared to you two, but I thought they were absolutely fantastic. They were arguably not the favourites going in, but they're definitely up there. In like the World Cups and that, it's been like toe to toe with the USA team for quite a while, but they've never won it. The performance throughout the entire tournament was second to none. Like when you say, Martin, that it's not the same. Do you mean as in it's like not the same quality as football compared to the men's? Is that what you mean by it?
It's just obviously it's not the same quality. You can't compare men's football to women's football because everything in place, like in every country, pretty much every structure is all set up for men's football, and it has been for over a century.
It has, Martin. What you got to remember. I mean, I know we briefly discussed this back in December 1921. The FA actually banned women's football because they've got no control over the money because they played matches for charity during the war effort and everything else. There was actually a league set up, Munitions Cup was set up originally, and during the war, that the ladies were pulling crowds of 53,000, and they were filling stadiums all over. I mean, one of the England sides played, I think it was a Scottish 11 in Paris, and actually won 2-0. A bit of a one-sided game, obviously. But I think if they hadn't have been banned, we would have ladies playing perhaps on par with, some of the top-class male players that we've got now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the way they played throughout the tournament was like the better out of them. I've seen like Sweden, they're the second in the world, and I thought they were absolutely rubbish the whole tournament. I don't even know how they made it to the semi-finals. And then Germany, we got to the final. I didn't really know that much about Germany, and I saw how they've won it. I think they've done this. This is the 12th tournament. Oh no, in 12 tournaments they've won it 8 times, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, they've won all the finals. They've won
every final we're going to get absolutely slammed here. Yeah. So I didn't really know that much about them, but yeah, I think the ref was awful. Questionably one of the worst referees I've ever seen. Some of the tackles the Germany were pulling in was atrocious. Like that would have been a red card in any other game. And then was it Stanway? Let's have a look. Yeah, Stanway pulls on a very similar tackle to one of them, and she gets a yellow card, and the other team did. And that set the tone. It was like 20 minutes in probably, and it set the tone for the rest of the match.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere in all the stadiums, like I've seen games before where I didn't even know it's been televised, and there's been no media attention. It's not been advertised, but it's on telly. And I'm like, oh, let's put it on. And there's nobody in the crowd. There's barely anyone. But throughout this tournament, every stadium's been packed. We've had the highest attendance to a European football game ever, which good luck beating that one now. So because we just had for the men's, we just had our Euros, and they've just beaten it for women. So I think they want to get a lot of attention and inspire a lot of kids now before they'd even won the final. And then now they've won the final, it's just made it even better and given it more of a limelight for them.
Yeah.
So
that was something that Ian Wright said, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those things
about the legend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where the men went to the final and they messed it up. Was it really Gareth Southgate's fault? I'm not 100% sure. Was it really the team's fault? I don't know. But women managed to get to the final and win it against 8-time champions, and they did it. So, I mean, I'm looking at their squad now, and I think their oldest player is 35.
Dirty boy. Yeah, the Peter Crouch of the ladies team, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's the old
the one that,
yeah, Jill Scott. Yeah, she's 35, and
yeah, she's gone.
I think like the average team's probably like 24, maybe 26, maybe something like that. Because they've got quite, but it averages that they've got a really decent squad, and like you said, Martin, was it? I think was the 2 goal scorers from Manchester United.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then the keepers from Manchester United. So, being a fan of Manchester United, Martin, I'm sure that made you happy seeing that.
I think I'm not sure actually if Kelly is from Man United. I know the strikers were. I know.
She's from City.
Yeah, so
I've seen it now. Yeah. Tunes from United, and then Earps is from Man United as well.
Yeah, I know Earps got keeper of the tournament.
Yeah,
she's from Man United, and then obviously Ella Toon came on. She's from Man United. I think the other striker, Russo, who scored that back heel. I think
she's from United. Yeah.
I think Beth.
What a goal that back heel was!
Oh, so good. No one expected that. When she did it, I thought that's just going to get a defender's just going to hit that away.
This is where I've got problems with women's football. Is the goalkeeping in women's football is so poor. I don't know if it's to do with how heavy the ball is, how big the nets are, and like, yeah, England's keeper is probably the best keeper in there, and she's like 5'7". The moment like you get any height on anything, it's just straight in the goal. Like, that is my biggest problem with women's football, is just the goalkeeping issue, because almost every single goalkeeper just seems to be poor from what I watch. So many soft goals going. I mean, like England's winner, like I don't understand why she's just not putting her hands on the ball. Like, she's tried to knee it out, and like it's gone like a yard. And obviously, Kelly's tapped it in. Like, I just don't understand. Like, I don't know if it's a bravery issue or what, but I can guarantee you that in men's football, I think he'd have just put his hands on that.
I think it's height. To be fair, I think it's a question of physical height.
I think height is a massive issue.
I've just had look. Our England goalkeepers, the tallest one's 5'8".
Yeah.
I mean, that's in men's football. You're like, if you're not 6 foot, you've got no chance.
Exactly.
So,
this is why it's the thing of like, I don't understand why women's nets aren't a little bit smaller. But then it's the thought of like, oh no, you can't do that because it's equality.
No.
It's like, yeah, but it's not how the world works, isn't it? Like, men and women are built differently. Like, and originally it's played for a men's game. That's why the nets are how they are. So it's strange to me. It's always been strange to me. They're playing the exact same nets. That is my biggest problem in women's football, is they play in the exact same goals when they are 99% going to be shorter than the men's goalkeepers. Like you said, if you've got a 6 foot goalkeeper or lower than that, then you question marking it. You don't have a good career normally, because you've got to be big. You've got to have a good reach. It's really.
It's like you can train somebody for positioning and reaction time, but if that ball's going over them and they miss it, like they jump as high as they can and they still miss it, it's because of the height. It's going to happen. So I get what you completely understand what you're saying, but I think a lot of people thought it was just going to be like I watched. There was a Sweden game against, I can't remember who it was, and it was probably the worst games of football I've ever seen. I've told you two about it. It's probably the worst games of football I've ever seen. It was atrocious, but every single England game I watched was brilliant. From like, everyone goes, "Oh yeah, but they're just women." But it was brilliant all the way through. Like the way they were passing, the positioning, the goals they were scoring were amazing, and everyone in the stadium was having a good time. That's mean the atmosphere was incredible. It makes you want to go to one. While at the men's, the amount of negativity you get, it's like we've all been to football games where everyone's G'd up and like, come on, and then as soon as they start losing, they're telling everyone how crap they are and the manager needs to get out, you need to get, and all sorts of profanities they were saying at them. So you don't really see that in women's football.
I think the reason why you don't see that, mate, is because it's so much in its infancy that people aren't as hardcore fans of it. And also, it sounds weird me saying this, but I don't think people are as bothered about women's football in general.
Well, you could tell.
So they don't go as mad. Like when England scored in the Euros, like everyone went absolutely balmy. And then you cut to the same place, and people are just like,
we've seen the videos where the beer's getting thrown up in the air.
So the reason why is because people don't care about it enough to go to the levels. I mean, whether they should or not, it's like you can't force people to.
No, you can't. I'm not saying force people, but
to care about it.
I think it goes back to the whole of it goes back to, obviously it was banned for 50 years. So people weren't seeing it. People weren't having that opportunity to go and get behind the best teams or the team that they wanted to watch. Yes, a few of the teams continued playing, but they ended up having to play on rugby pitches because the FA banned them using any FA regulation pitch throughout. So it's like you said, Mike, it is still its infancy, really. I think it came back in 1971. I think they lifted the ban, so it is still very much in its infancy. And who's to say in 20 years' time we could be doing another one of these podcasts and it's a completely different story where some of the women have become superstars and household names like your Ronaldos and your Rooney's and your Combs. It's definitely improving, to fill like they did was a feat within itself. I think the media have got to start advertising the facts that these games are on.
Yep, completely agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I'd not heard that any of the ladies' teams were playing. To be totally honest, I didn't even know until about a week ago that the ladies' European Cup was on. So I'd not heard anything through the media or anything else. I think it was the back heel from on Sweden's against Sweden that well, actually, what's going on? I didn't even know this was happening. Whereas the men's, it's always the same. I don't know if any of you guys got to see the celebrations in Trafalgar Square.
No, I didn't get a chance
of
to see
the ladies' team. Very much the same sort of thing, a token gesture. Where if that had been the men's team, yes, it wouldn't have been the day after. Half of London would have been shut off. Something proper would have been organised. What they did is the section part of Trafalgar Square up, put a bit of a stage up. People went. There was a decent crowd there, but same again. No advertisement about it. No real planning, so to speak. If they'd have left it 2 or 3 days, maybe more people would have ventured down to London to celebrate it properly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, people follow the money. Sponsorship, like there's barely any sponsors. Like you saw it going around. It was pretty much the same sponsor that was going around the stadium. That was it.
Yeah,
it's like if you've got, people have got like Nike, Adidas, Reebok, Coca-Cola or whatever. You've got all them sponsoring the men's team, chucking money at it left, right, and centre. I don't think it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for women to catch up to that. That performance. I hope they do. I hope it gets to that point where you can watch the men's and the women's. You don't really see that difference, but physicality, you'll never. It'll never be the same, obviously, because that's just how men and women build different, unfortunately. But yeah, it was a proper proud moment to watch them able to lift that trophy. Obviously, I thought, well, I wonder if, because I'm not, apart from the last couple of years, never really thought they actually won anything, and they haven't. This is the first time the team's that good. You thought surely they've won something, and I think they got to the Euro final in 2009, and they lost it on penalties. I think I remember that, very slightly remember that, but yeah, I hope they go on to do better. Like the World Cup's next year, for them, and the big rival, like I said, was USA. They're basically like Brazil for the men's team. Like good luck beating them.
Yeah, the first qualifier for the World Cup is September. I think they've already sold 20,000 tickets for the game against Luxembourg.
Well, I hope it gets advertised properly then, because people need to watch it.
Well, I'm assuming it'll probably get a bit more since the win. I think everything escalates it. It'll eventually reach its pinnacle, and that it'll never be as big as the men's. Like it's just been going too long, and there's just too much interest into it. But I think it's only going to get better for the women's football, definitely.
Oh yeah.
I think this tournament's done it an absolute power of good. But unfortunately, there's not enough in place for women's football to grow at the level that people involved in it want it to grow at. That is for sure.
I just hope they manage to keep their manager, because she was incredible. I mean, she won it with Denmark, and then she left them to join the England team, and they won it.
I don't think it was Denmark. I think it was Netherlands.
Netherlands, sorry. Yeah, Netherlands. I don't know why I said Denmark. Yeah,
Netherlands, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's unbeaten in major tournaments, which is fascinating to really think about it. It's like the interview after they had with one of England women, and they were talking about Beekman, and she was just saying she gives you so much belief. Like, you know, she's not lost. Like, you don't feel like you're going to lose when you're playing under her.
No.
And yeah, that's a massive pull. If I'm assuming she'll stay at England for the World Cup.
Just chuck money at her, please.
But yeah, I think you'd have to make England favourites, even if they're not the best team in the world. Like, on paper, I think you'd have to make them favourites because they've got the best manager in Europe, certainly. That's obvious. And obviously, European champions, I think it makes you almost instant favourites.
Yeah.
Regardless,
I know she's been as the manager. She's won the last 17 out of 19 games.
Yeah, I was just about to say that stat as well. Like, she's like Jose at home. She can't beat her.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the men's team?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to start at the good part or the bad part?
Well, I mean, you just have to start with what's happened under Southgate. Really, I think that's what you've got to go from. Obviously, the World Cup had an absolute stellar qualification. I don't think England lost a qualification game. Went to the World Cup. Still a lot of doubt about England because obviously dramatic failures year after year after year. Went into that a little bit optimistic because obviously there's always that hope that England can do well, and they did have some really, really good young players still at the time, like blossoming through. And then obviously they had Harry Kane, who's like, when you've got someone like that, you've always got hope, really. There's an absolute top draw finisher. And then you had your young players, like really exciting players like Dele Alli and whatnot. It at the time was like one of the hottest prospects in Europe, really. Not so much now, but that's probably more his fault than anyone else's. So I think it went very optimistically into the tournament. After loads of failure, Gareth Southgate had a good start. He seems quite a good person. Comes across quite well. Very calm, passionate about England. He's been through the heartache himself, so I think that gives him a little bit of like understanding with the fans straight away. With him missing that penalty, and then to be fair, I think England got quite fortunate in the World Cup. If I'm honest, like, they had a decent group. They didn't play particularly well, but they managed. They had some sort of like weird, like, invention from corners there. Like, they just kept scoring from corners. Like, it was just bizarre. Like Harry Maguire and Harry Kane, and everything, just like banging goals in from corners. Like, just so strange. They had this weird thing about it. Like, they were all in a conga line, and like no one could stop them. Like, it was really strange to me. I don't think they played that particularly good football. They just constantly seemed to score from set pieces.
Yep. That's how they got through.
Yeah, and obviously Harry Kane was on top form, just banging him in. But I think the pathway for him was just it was ridiculous. Like, I was looking at the draw and I was like, oh, Brazil are out. Oh, England have got Colombia. All right, okay. And then I thought, oh, look, France are out. I'm like, oh my God, France are the favourites. Then England just kept getting team that they should beat after team they should beat, and then they got to Croatia, and I'm just like, no way Croatia's gonna. I mean, don't get me wrong, they've done great, but there's no way Croatia are gonna stand up against England's like young players. Like Croatia's average age was like 29, 30 or something. Like, there's no way they're gonna be able to beat England in hot climate, like there's absolutely no chance that like England will just run ragged after a bit. I was so confident going into that game that England would beat Croatia. Like literally, I was so confident because the mat that physically England just like they should have run rings around them really. But I think that game tactically, for me, Southgate got it dead wrong, which he has done quite a lot in the games that matters. For some reason, there was absolutely no pressing onto Croatia's midfield. So Modric was just dictating the run of the play. Like he's probably their best player, and was obviously player at tournament, won the Ballon d'Or and whatnot in that year. So he was on fire as it was. And there was just no pressing. Like they just let him have the ball and do what he wanted with the ball. Whereas, like to me, it just made perfect sense just to sit someone on him, whether it be whoever it were in that game, like Jordan Henderson or whatever. Like just literally sit on him and don't let him move, because he will dictate everything. And then even taking the lead, like you're thinking after like 10 minutes when Trippier's like put one in, he's like, oh yeah, this is England's time. We're gonna get to a final. We've done it. No, absolutely not a chance. Not a chance.
I think that's always been a problem with England, though, hasn't it? You know, they'll score that early goal, and then they just seem to stop playing attacking football. Full stop. You know, it's defence. We'll sit on this goal. Okay, we'll just spend the next 70 minutes defending this goal.
Yeah.
And like you said, Martin, they've got some really good attacking players. I mean, Saka. I remember watching a few of the games. Yeah. It was up in the opposition's end all the time. So when they play attacking football, they look good. They can look really good. But like I say, it's really frustrating. I mean, obviously, watching England for a long time now, and it's always been the same, regardless of what manager they've had. They'll get a goal up. Right, defend. And you can't do that against some of the better sides, especially like the Germany and everything else. You know, the France nowadays and all that, because you can't allow them to play the football. You've got to be on them all the time, forcing the errors so that you can capitalise on it.
They give teams too much respect, and that's the problem. They think everyone, like with the whole Modric thing. They did it with Italy as well. With Pirlo, their game. They just let Pirlo do whatever he wanted, just going around. It was just one of those things. It does make me wonder if it's just a training thing, or if it's just a mentality. I think it might be more of a mentality thing, where they'll set off the ball, they won't play it, they won't give it to their attackers. They'll just pass it around every now and again. See what they're gonna do, try and break the other team down. And when that don't work, it's like, well, what's our next plan? Don't know. Just try and pop it into the box, I guess.
Well, under Southgate, I'm pretty confident that the reason England play that the way they play, I mean, they do dominate most games because usually they're against inferior opposition on paper.
Yeah. Well, look at the next World Cup fixtures. You've got Iran, USA, and Wales. It's like we should be winning that hands down.
Yeah, England should win that comfortably. I mean, it won't be comfortable because
it won't be because
don't really do comfortable groups. But the problem with I think the biggest problem we got with Southgate is like I think he does all the basics right. Like he's actually probably a really good coach, to be fair. He sets England up quite well. I think the biggest problem for him is it's not really his fault. Is the lack of good quality English central defenders at the moment is absolutely criminal. And it's to the point now where Southgate, I don't think feels brave enough to play a 4-4-2, or if he does, he feels like he's got to play a very defensive, like sort of like robotic midfield. Where he's like, if he plays like, I think Harry Maguire and John Stones are probably England's best centre backs, and says everything you really need to know. To be fair, because John Stones, I mean, he's done all right at Man City, but he was out of the scene for like 2 years, just entirely, just didn't even get a sniff for England. And then suddenly just comes back and he looks good because like the competition he's up against is not really good. Maguire's obviously had a lot of stick, like he didn't have a good season at all, but he's still first defender on team sheet realistically. And then the backup they've got is just not good. I mean, Tyrone Mings is massively overrated for me. I think he's he's a borderline decent defender. And they've got players like Connor Cody, just absolutely awful. Like a team that wants to win the World Cup, you can't be having them. If there's injury problems to John Stones and Maguire, like England ain't got a chance. Like the squad depth at centre back is so poor. I think he's almost has to play players like Rice and Phillips in the midfield to cover like these areas between midfield and defence, and that gives England a problem because then their most attacking outlet then is like in midfield is like Jordan Henderson. It's like that's not really what he's there for.
No.
And then like Mason Mount, he does all right for Chelsea, but I think for England he doesn't play his best football at all. He seems to play every single game, which boggles the mind really, because I think he was probably England's poorest player at the Euros, and he played almost every single minute of every game. Like it stunts England. Like England have got so many good attacking players, and they only field like 4 of them, and I just find it really, really, really weird. Like I don't know if it's a bravery thing or the Southgate's thinking, no, I can't do this, or what. But when you've got players like Foden, Saka, Kane, Sancho, even Sterling, like you want to be getting him on the pitch. Grealish, like you need to get these players onto the pitch. They'll win your games. They'll win your tournaments. You can't sit there with Rice, Phillips, and Henderson as your midfield 3. It's just they were fortunate, really, to get to the final of the Euros with some of the teams they played. Like, imagine having Denmark and I don't know, like Italy's route to the final was so much harder. England did play Germany, but that's probably the poorest Germany I've seen for a long time.
It's an old Germany squad.
Yeah,
as well.
they just scraped through the groups. Germany only just scraped through the group. I mean, England played all right in that game, but they didn't blow Germany away, and Germany had chances. To be fair, they just couldn't put them away. Like Muller missed a few.
Yeah.
I think that's my biggest problem with Southgate.
Muller missed a sitter, didn't he?
Yeah, that's my biggest problem with Southgate is he's too defensive for me. He's so concerned with the lack of good centre backs that he plays too many holding midfielders, too many robotic midfielders. Like he needs to get attacking players on the pitch and try and dominate teams. Try and keep it up the other end like Man City do.
Yeah.
Like the best teams play attacking football.
Yeah, I think he's scared about going. And it sounds silly. It sounds like a Michael Owen quote, but I feel like he's scared about going 1-0 down. Because they literally don't. Once they go 1-0 down, the other team will just sit back and they don't know what to do. Gareth Southgate can't work out how to break a team. If it's a well-organised team, then that sits back solidly, and they've got two banks of 4. Southgate does not know what to do. He has no idea. It's just, he'll end up
as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. He'll end he throws on Jack Grealish in like 10 minutes to go, and he'll end up doing something magical and win us in the game. But we shouldn't be at that point. It shouldn't have to wait till 10 minutes left of the game. We'll throw Jack Grealish on for 10 minutes, like at the final. Was it the final where Jack Grealish was on and they took him off? So he subbed a sub. Did I make that up?
Nah. I think it was in extra time. I think he did come off for Saka or Rashford to take a penalty. It was one of them, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah. Like, he could have won the game. He could
But
have,
it's
like, been the
just-
last minute and won it. And they took him off. Bonkers.
Well, so Brian Clough always used to say, didn't he? It only takes a second to score a goal. But I think it's a lot of. It baffles me when you see like the England squad comes up and it's the same names every time, regardless of whether they're in form or not. You've got your top players every time. I think it's just almost like, well, they've played shite for the last 6 months, but all of a sudden they might just start playing. Or there's players out there that would jump at the chance that are possibly playing in form. Get them on. Make it so that your place isn't guaranteed in the England squad. If you want it, you've got to earn it. You've got to consistently be playing well, regardless of whether you're banging goals in at left, right, and centre at Man U or Chelsea or Arsenal or wherever. But you're consistently playing well. You're getting them balls up. You're assisting with goals. You're getting the crosses in. Because that's where it comes in, doesn't it? You get the cross in, the header, the volley, whatever. You're getting that ball into their area for the chance of scoring that goal, whether it be Messi and you get deflections or whatever else. Doesn't matter. If once it's in the back of the net, it's there, isn't it?
Yep.
But it's always been the same with England. Same again, it's always been the same names coming up. Once you got that squad, it was the same people, tournament in, tournament out.
I think, to be fair, I think Southgate's it's probably been the most progressive coach in getting new people out there. I think
it was more like that at the start. The start of him being a coach, he brought more in. But as time's gone on, he's starting to pick the same people. In question of quality or question of consistency, he just ends up picking the same people.
I think that's normal though, mate. Because obviously he's tried a lot of these players, and he obviously doesn't like them and doesn't think they're good enough for that situation. So he's not going to keep trying more and more players. It's not going to keep up at that rate because you get to the point where he's tried everyone. I mean, he's been manager for what, 5 years now, or something.
Yeah.
So it is going to slow down. You're never going to have that same rate. But I think he is the most progressive manager I've seen England have by a mile. To be fair, he's given so many players their international debuts, players that I don't even think deserve it. If I'm honest, he's given players caps that I'm just like, well, they're not going to play, are they? Realistically, it's just almost like token caps, but. He's starting to get more of a settled team now that plays a lot. But I think he is shoehorned a little bit into the defenders. Players like Trippier and that, don't get me wrong, he's a decent player, Kieran Trippier, but he should be nowhere near that England squad. He shouldn't be there as a left back, and why he's there as a right back, I'll never know, because you've got players like Reece James and Trent that are much better players. So why is Trippier there? Why is he there? He's there because you've got cover at left back. Well, what about Shaw? What about Chilwell? I don't understand. He took Chilwell to the last tournament, and he barely played a minute. Played 3 minutes or something.
So
he'd rather play. Exactly. Players like Ward-Prowse, they don't get a look in because he plays Rice and Phillips every single game. But this leads into what I said before about the defence. He has to play Rice and Phillips because he doesn't trust anyone else. He's tried to play Bellingham there, but Bellingham doesn't. He's a talented player, yeah, but he's not what Southgate needs. That's why I don't think he's going to play. I don't think he's going to start. I think if they fit, Rice and Phillips start the World Cup, 100%. 100%. Players like Huddleston, players like Bellingham and that. The future of England, realistic. Look how good they are. Look how good he is. He's 18, 19. But no, it'll be the same midfield three. It'll be Henderson, Phillips, and Rice. And then I can guarantee you, it'll be Mount and Kane. It'll be Mount and Kane up top, and then you've got ridiculous amount of talent just left on the bench. Like I said, you probably might even Sterling might be in there because Sterling's record for England's pretty good, even though I think it's just not there. Like I think Sterling's always been a little bit overrated for me, but I think he gets most of his goals because they put on a silver platter for him at Man City. But then you've got players like Saka and Sancho, Foden, Grealish.
Yeah.
Like,
two good players, Saka and Sancho. I was impressed with when they were on in the last tournament.
You've got an amazing array of players there that won't get minutes. That won't get the minutes deserved because they've got 2 defensive players on. But yeah, I do agree with as to a certain point with he's playing the same players, but I think over his tenure he's definitely been the most progressive manager there. But I don't think he's spoilt for choice in the defensive areas, mate. So that's why you see the same sort of players. Same with goalkeepers. He's not blessed with them either. Like if Jordan Pickford's your best goalkeeper, then there's problems there. There's problems there. Don't get me wrong. He's been banging for England. To be fair, for some reason, like for Everton, he's a completely different goalkeeper. He's like all over the shop.
Yep.
But for England, he suddenly is like, I don't know, he's a kind of spinach or something. He's like absolute tip top. But he shouldn't be your best goalkeeper. Jordan Pickford should not be England's best goalkeeper. So there's a problem there. And
bring back Peter Shipton.
Yeah, he'd do a good job. Your best 2 centre backs shouldn't be Maguire and Stones either. So England are blessed at right back and they're blessed as with wingers. But other than that, it's a bit compared to teams like France and that, it's a bit lacking, really.
Do you think there's any England youngsters that will end up going centre backs wise?
I mean, there's Dimitri Mitchell, who's sort of a left-sided defender. That Gahey is again both Palace youngsters.
As I said, there's a lot of Palace players who I think will end up being in the England squad.
They have already been there, but again, they're both not good enough for me. And at left back, it's like you've got Shaw, who didn't have the best of years last season, and then Chilwell, who doesn't even play regularly for Chelsea. Like for some reason, even Marcus Alonso, who wants out, gets in front of Chilwell. Then it's like, well, what do you do then? Do you play Kieran Trippier at left back, even though he's right-footed? It's this issue. Left back is a bit of an issue. Centre back is an issue. Right back, you've got tons of them. You've got loads. Yeah, I don't know about young players, mate. Defensively, I can't say I see many, if I'm honest.
I think some of the issue again is the expectation caused by the media. You know, because obviously you get players that are in form with the club. It's in all the paper. Why didn't you play Rashford? Why didn't you play so and so? Why didn't you play this? Which whips up obviously the crowd and the people, supporters, and everything else. So that expectation for England to do well becomes a lot of pressure for them as well, because you know it's we all want them to do well, of course we do, but when it's in every newspaper, on every news channel, on every radio channel for weeks prior to the tournament, you know, and then if they don't perform to the best, they're being slated for weeks after the tournament, and it's obviously got to have an effect on the players. Yeah. Not only the mental state, but obviously on the way they play. You know, they get on that pitch and they think, well, I've got to play well. I've got to really do really well. Otherwise, you know, I'm going to be all over the media tomorrow morning, and I'm going to be getting called from a pig to a goat, or even a donkey. And it's a lot of pressure for them to have to deal with for a game, which potentially, it's a game of football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember all the racism from that penalty shootout? It was insane. Never. It's like they should never have took them. They should never have been on to take them penalties. That was way too much pressure.
That was a mistake as well.
That was a huge mistake.
That was a mistake bringing those youngsters on like that. Like fed them to wolves almost. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like professional football, they should be able to score penalties. Like, but in that environment, especially Saka, because he'd had such a good tournament, and I felt really sorry for the guy. But there's no need for the racism, regardless, really. They could have missed 20 penalties, and there's no need for that. Yeah, if you want to call someone shit, you call them shit. Like, that's your opinion. But yeah, when it gets to those lengths, it's just a bit too much, isn't it? And sadly, that is a theme with football. And I'd say it gets better, like since when I was a kid. But it doesn't really. It's still there. There doesn't need to be like a million abusive messages. Like, just because there's 100, it's still as bad.
Going back to the women's team, it's the same thing. Like, it doesn't matter what they change and what they do, or what adverts they bring out, and what male footballer they come out to tell everyone that it's wrong. It's still going to be there. Always will be there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just ingrained into the psyche of people. It's regardless of where you're from. Racism isn't just an issue towards, obviously the blacks, the Indians, the Asians, or whatever else. In their countries, it's directed towards, obviously, the whites, the Caucasians. It's always an issue, regardless of where you go in the world. And I can't ever see it being totally eradicated. I think Morgan Freeman said one of the best things. Why do we have to say, this black man or this white man? Why can't we just say this man? Why do we have to bring a colour into it, or this woman?
Oh, when he said about Black History Month, why can't it just be all the time?
Yeah.
Why do we have to have a month dedicated to being a certain race? Ridiculous. Yeah. Whoever comes up with these things, they need their head looking at. Yeah. They're not as bad, but they add fuel to the fire with stuff like that.
Yeah. Of course.
On the same topic as the football, they're scrapping the taking a knee. I think that's it's lost its gravitas, according to captains of the Premier League clubs. They said it says taking the knee now has lost its gravitas. So I think they're going to stop doing that now. Because it's going to get to a point where it's just there and you don't think about it, and that's what they're trying to avoid. So I think that's ending soon. There is this debate within football whether you should take the knee or not. I know some clubs. Mansfield Town, for instance, they don't take the knee, but they applaud other teams taking the knee, which is their gesture. So I think it's a personal thing on each club or each manager. But I do think I do agree. I think taking the knee now is just a bit too much, because it's going to get to a point where it's just no one's interested in it. It's just like, oh, why do they do that? Oh, it's just part of the game. Like, all right. There's no question there of what it is. So I think I agree. I think they should stop doing things like that.
Yeah. Max Verstappen said the same thing. Yeah. Said it's an empty thing. Max Verstappen said the same thing in Formula One.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Within Formula One, he said the same thing.
It's literally just like a token thing. It's like, yeah, look, I'm doing this, guys. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I mean, they don't probably.
It's like sending a care on Facebook, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's it's got no real weight behind it. If somebody cares, they'll get in touch with you, even if it's just a message, and say, "Look, mate, how you doing?" or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, sending little care, taking the knee. It's exactly the same. It's got no weight behind it. So I'm gonna kneel down for 5 minutes or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, we'll move on from the old BLM stuff because I mean we might do a podcast on that. So I don't want to waste the juice. But while we're talking about the World Cup, I'm just looking through all the groups here. So I'm gonna go through these groups and we'll see who we think is going to get out of these groups. I mean, the fact that the World Cup's in Qatar and they've moved it to a winter event is absolutely mind blowing to me. It's corruption at its absolute finest, and money related. I mean, the fact that they've had to build like what is it, 9 stadiums and so much. They've had to build all this. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. It is all money based, but now it's here and we can't do anything about it. So I'm going to start with the first group, and that is the group that Qatar's in. So obviously Qatar probably wouldn't have qualified for the World Cup, but seeing as it's their World Cup, you know, they just happen to be in it. It's weird, that one. So Qatar, there's Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, and Netherlands in Group A. Now I think massive favourites instantly are Netherlands. They've been quite good, to be fair, since Lou Van Gaal's been back in charge.
You can't rule out Senegal either.
Yeah, no, Senegal are. I mean, they are.
They're one of them teams.
Ridiculous.
Nobody expects them to do well, but then all of a sudden they're smashing and dropping giants that they shouldn't be doing. It's
No, I think Senegal will surprise massively. I think because they're an AFCON team, I think they are massively underrated. And I think they will definitely come out that group for me. I think Netherlands, obviously, I think will be favourites because of the European team. But I mean, Senegal winning the African Cup of Nations is as good for me. If I had to choose, I mean, Qatar, you can't predict Qatar to win any games realistically.
He'll get battered. He'll get absolutely thrashed.
Ecuador have got some okay players. Like
I think they might surprise.
Names,
I think they might surprise.
I think Ecuador will probably maybe just beat Qatar. They'll probably get one win.
Mm-hmm.
It might be close. Obviously, Senegal and Netherlands got to play each other. Ecuador might get a chance, maybe. But I think Senegal and Netherlands will do enough to get out of that group for me.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree on that. I think Ecuador might snatch a win or maybe a draw with Netherlands and Senegal, maybe. But,
there's definitely routes for Ecuador.
I think
get out. Yeah.
Unless there's some match fixing from Qatar, then we won't talk about that.
Yeah, don't rule that out.
South Korea 2002.
Yeah.
We won't talk about that game.
Yeah, all wait at the semi-final.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then after that, they never see him again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, that one.
And the World Cup winners are.
So I think we're both going for. All of us are going for Senegal and Netherlands on that one. But I do think Senegal will do really well in this World Cup. I think players like Mane. I think that honestly, Senegal. I can see him reaching quarterfinals at least. So Group B is the group everyone's interested in this podcast. Is England's group. Iran, USA, and Wales. You said it earlier on. There's no way in a million I can predict, or anyone can predict, England to not get out of this group, whether it'll happen or not. I think it'd just be ridiculous to predict England not to come top of this group.
I would say I think the only team they've really got to watch out for is USA. Really, I know they've had the best of record against the Americans at times, but it's almost like a local derby, isn't it? England Wales.
Yeah,
they'll be happy to beat England. That'll be their World Cup final for them. They'll be happy for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there has been quite a few games played between England and that home nations recently, with Scotland and that. I mean, England's probably played their worst football when they played against Scotland in the Euros. So I think it did affect England slightly, and obviously Scotland got up for it. I mean, Wales, when they got to the semi-finals of the World Cup, England beat them in that group, but they weren't good. I mean, England weren't good at all. They were terrible. I mean, I think they lost to Iceland. Was it lost to Iceland and that drew to Russia?
Yeah.
But they did beat Wales. So you could have probably said that Wales were the better team, but England put in a better performance because it was against Wales. So yeah, I do think Wales could definitely do something against England potentially. There's always that chance. And for some reason, England can never seem to beat USA. Go back to the Steven Gerrard one where I think it was the opening game.
Yeah.
The World Cup won it, and England drew to him.
Rob Green.
So,
yeah.
Well, that was previous England. That was this is a different beast. It's a different beast.
All I'm going to say is, if England draw against Iran, start sweating.
Yeah. Yeah.
If England draw against Iran, Qatar for the cup.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only Iranian player I know is Godos. I think that played for Brentford. I think Godos is the only Iranian player I know. I don't know any other Iranian players. So, I mean, Iran should finish dead last in that group. But I mean, you never know. But for me, I think you've got to go England top of that group without a shadow of a doubt. And you'd have to, with their performances in tournaments, and they've still got the talisman for one more tournament of Gareth Bale. And I don't. It doesn't matter whether he plays football or not. For some reason, this guy just turns up for Wales at that time and time again. So a little bit of a last hurrah, I think, maybe for Gareth Bale this one. I do think Wales will finish second in this group. I really do. I think England and Wales will take this one for me.
It's between
Definitely
USA and
England,
Wales.
England should finish top of that group. Yeah, it'll depend on what team turns up on the actual tournament between them two. I think it's if England don't turn up, then I think you've got to be looking towards possibly the USA taking the group. But it should be England. It should be England top of the group.
Yeah,
definitely.
I agree. Right, Group C. Now it's quite an interesting group actually.
It's the group of death. This is the group of death for everyone.
So it's Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. And I genuinely think this is an absolute belting group. Argentina have been. I mean, I can't remember the last time they lost an international game. It was a long time ago. They have been in absolute incredible form as a nation. Obviously, they've got the icon of Messi, but they have got just some fantastic players. Really good manager. They should be obviously straight favourites. Obviously, as they won the Copa America first time in a long time. So they should be hot favourites. Probably one of the favourites to win the tournament, to be fair. I think they're in the list. And then obviously Saudi Arabia, I don't think are as bad of a nation at football as what people think. I think Saudi Arabia are actually quite competent. They seem to get to every single World Cup. They're always there. I think they should finish last in the group for me. I think Argentina should win the group, but I think the race for second in this group is going to be absolutely mental. I think Mexico and Poland, I can't actually call that at all, because Mexico always perform well in tournaments. They always perform well. They always get out of the group as well. They always seem to have a difficult group and come out of it. Mexico, I don't know how they managed to do it, but they somehow turn up every single tournament. And Poland have got some fantastic players. Like, Lewandowski, for instance, like they've got some really good players. So that is so hard to call. Like, my head's saying Poland, but there's something about Mexico that I just can't. I can't rule Mexico. I can't say Mexico is going to get knocked out.
I think Poland, what they've got to look at it is obviously the group. They've got 2 South American teams to play, and the South American teams have got a history of doing well in tournaments. It's almost like the old North and South Hemisphere with the rugby. They've always had that history of doing well in these tournaments. I agree with, I think Argentina to the top of the group. I think between Mexico and Poland, I think it's going to be the same again. It's what team turns up in the tournament. Which team decides to turn up and wants it the most.
I agree actually with that. I do think I'd have to shade it for me to Mexico, because I just think they'll come in the numbers to support. I think there'll be a lot of Mexican supporters there, and I think they'll thrive, especially in the heat as well. I think they'll enjoy it more than the Poland team. So for me, I think Mexico are going to finish second for me.
I would say Mexico, but I've just looked up. Carlos Vela hasn't played for him since 2018. So for me, yeah, that's it. Carlos Vela is not playing for Mexico. It's done. They're not going through.
It was all about Carlos Vela and Rafael Marquez and Chicho Hernandez, mate. That's all it was.
That's it. It's done. So.
And the Dos Santos brothers. Now I think Mexico's still got some great players. I won't sleep on them at all. I think I agree with Mark. I think they'll turn up. I think they're the tournament sort of nation. I think they'll just do enough. But it wouldn't surprise me if Poland top the group. It really wouldn't, because they've got one of the best strikers in the world. So, if I had to predict, I think you'd be daft not to put Argentina top. And I think it's Mexico second for me. But it is close.
Yeah, I think Argentina will be top. I think from the quality of Poland's players, I mean, they've got a strong spine throughout the whole team, so they'll end up second. And I think Mexico will just fall short. And then obviously Saudi Arabia. I don't think Saudi Arabia, they might nick a draw, but
Saudi Arabia are definitely capable to get something from someone.
They'll get something, but it's I think the way Poland are set up, I just can't see it. I can't see anyone. I think Mexico will need to be lucky against Argentina. Try and get something there and see what happens. But
I definitely could see any of that combination happening for me. So the Group D, I think this looks spicier than it is, but I think it's quite straightforward for me. It's France, Australia, Denmark, and Tunisia. Obviously France, like, you've got to predict them to get out of that group number one. I think they're probably the favourites for the tournament in general. I mean, Denmark have got some really good players, like really, really good players, like Christian Eriksen and such. So I mean, for me, this group's quite straightforward. I think it's just France, Denmark, number 1, 2. Australia, I mean, their route to qualify it's not as hard as it probably should be. The oceanic route is never normally that difficult, although Australia somehow do struggle to get there sometimes. I'd look at Australia's squad there. I just don't rate it at all. I just don't rate almost any of their players. They're not hardly any of them playing the big leagues. I mean, they might be well organised, they might be decent defensively, but I don't know how they're going to score goals to beat any of these teams. I really don't. I'd have to put Australia stone last. Tunisia have got some okay sort of flair players. I think a lot of their better players are quite old now. They seem to be one of them teams where they appear in every tournament, and you look at some of their players, you're like, oh right, he plays for Tunisia. Oh right, oh I didn't know he plays for Tunisia. Like there seems to be some of these players that it's like you don't like Wabi Kazri and that. It's like, oh right, he plays for Tunisia.
It's a bit like Algeria, isn't it? When you look at their team, and it's like, whoa, I didn't realise they had all these players.
Yeah, they've got like Mahrez and that. It's like, hold on a minute. No, I mean, I think most of Tunisia's better players are actually getting on a little bit now. I think, honestly, maybe previous tournaments I'd give Tunisia a little bit, but for me, it's just France, Denmark, number 2, 1-2.
Yeah, I think
I can't see
straightforward.
I can't see Australia getting anything from anyone. Tunisia might be Australia, but for me, it's just France, Denmark, number 1 and 2 for me.
Yeah.
It's nice to see Australia in the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, they do struggle to qualify sometimes,
Yeah.
which is bad in itself,
Yeah.
because I don't think their route is as hard. It's probably the easiest route to get through the Oceanic.
They don't have Tim Cahill, so what do you expect them to do?
No, they don't.
No.
No Tim Cahill, but they've got Aaron Moy, so they'll be all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, is that what we're all going for? France,
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's a slam dunk. That one, yeah.
I mean, when you look at the group, you think, oh, spicy. But then actually, if you think about it, it's like, no, it's probably the easiest group to call out of a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Group E: Spain, Costa Rica, Germany, and Japan. Now, Spain are in hot form. They are really, really good at the moment. Spain. They've somehow sort of like got a lot of their young players like really playing well together. They had probably like 4 or 6 year period where they weren't as good, but they've got a lot of good, solid young players now. And Spain are frightening, if I'm honest. I actually don't want to play Spain at all. Costa Rica, another team that always seems to be in the World Cup. They always seem to be good enough to get there. I mean, they were good enough to get a point against England not too long ago. But for me, I think Costa Rica are stone last in that group. Germany, I think Germany they're a tournament nation for me. I think they play their best football in tournaments. But I think this is the worst German squad I've seen for so long. I struggle to put them in front of Spain for me, but I think Spain won Germany.
It's almost like since the last. Yeah. So you can't rule out Japan because I mean they played really, really well in the last World Cup.
Yeah, Japan have got some,
they
got some decent players.
Smashed some signs. I think Germany have struggled since they last won the World Cup. It's almost like a lot of the squad retired, or it was almost their players reached that age and they've struggled to hit that form again. But when they do, they're one of the most clinical sides going. The Germans. It's never fancy football. It's not like the Brazil, or it's not played with a lot of flair, but it's clinical and it does the job. I think
the biggest problem that's been evident in German football for a while is their lack of an absolute top draw striker. Like, they're probably going to start Timo Werner in the World Cup, and I just don't think he's a top draw striker at all.
Yeah.
They've got some absolutely brilliant players. Like defensively, they are absolutely fantastic. Like they've got really good midfielders. Muller's getting on a little bit, but they've got like Leroy Sané. They've got Havertz, Serge Gnabry, Jamal Musiala, who I think is an absolute baller. But they're just missing that top draw striker for me. Germany.
It's like that in the German league, though. You go throughout the whole German league, and apart from Lewandowski, I don't think there is a top draw striker in that league.
Well, I mean, there was Haaland and.
But that's what I mean. Apart from them two, there wasn't.
Now, obviously, both of those have left. Obviously, there's still big players in there, but Germany are more just a well-oiled machine for me. But I don't think they've got enough punch to win. I don't think they've got enough punch to go deep in the World Cup. I don't.
I honestly think they'll go out. I think it'll be Spain, Japan, Germany, Costa Rica. I think Japan's gonna pull some out of the bag.
I definitely think there could be a situation where Japan and Germany have got the same points. They definitely could be that sort of situation.
Japan's definitely got the potential. Definitely.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't rule them out. I can't. For me, I can't put them to go ahead of Germany because Germany are more of a tournament team. They all seem to scrape out the groups. Germany, even though they didn't play well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't. If Japan got there in front of Germany, I would not be surprised at all.
Do we know what the first game is in that group?
It is Germany, Japan.
I think that'll be a very telling game. That.
Yeah, that could be massive if Japan somehow nick a win off Germany there, and obviously Spain probably will beat Costa Rica. Then Germany are behind the 8 ball instantly, and Germany have got to get a result against Spain then.
Yeah.
So it's it is a spicy one. I think
one to watch. That is definitely one group to watch.
Yeah, there definitely could be a banana skin there in that group, 100%. I do expect it to be Spain, Germany 1-2, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me any combinations there. Right, Group F. Now this group cracked me up when I saw that it had Belgium and Croatia in the same group, because they're literally two of the nations that they should do well, but I don't think they'll do well at all. Canada are almost there as a token. I mean, it's first time Canada have been there, and they've got Alphonso Davies. Yeah, that's about it. I think Canada will just get straight battered by every single one of these teams. Morocco have got some decent players, to be fair. I think Morocco are probably one of the stronger AFCON teams. They have got some really, really good players. They've got a player, defender called Aguerd, who's gone to West Ham for 30 mil. He's an absolute really good player. Moroccan. I think they'll be solid. Morocco. I genuinely think they'll be solid. I'd expect Belgium to win the group, although I think anyone from this group could get out. Honestly, I don't rate Belgium as much as what other people do. I think Belgium have almost had their time where they had these absolute superstars like littered through team, like Lukaku and Hazard, and that. It's like just then you've got Vertonghen and players like that, like just ridiculous players. But I think they've just got to a point now where it's just on a bit of a decline now for Belgium. I think they had their hot streak really, and they couldn't win the tournament from it. Croatia the same. I think their team is just full of absolute pensioners. Like, again, Modric is their best. Like Modric, Perisic are like deep into the 30s. I don't know. For me. I think Belgium will finish the group top, but for me, I don't know. There's something about Morocco. I think Morocco will go through in front of Croatia. I genuinely can see it. I think in the heat as well. I think Croatia will struggle. Really will struggle with the age. I said this.
They've got enough on the plates at the moment anyway, aren't they? So it's.
I mean, Modric is the inspiration, like, for them. If he plays well, who knows? But if he doesn't play well, I can't see them getting out of that group. I think for me, I think it's Belgium, Morocco, 1-2.
I think it's going to be one of the Belgium, Morocco, or Croatia. I wouldn't like to try and call this one at all, to be fair, because it could go anyway. I think this is one of the few groups where anyone could take it. Really, is nothing stands out for me.
I honestly think Belgium will end up bottling it. I think they'll go in thinking they've still got all these baller players, like you said, Martin, and I think it'll end up being Croatia, Morocco, Belgium, Canada.
I can see that happening. Yeah,
somehow Croatia will just end up coming out of nowhere and playing out of the skin just because the pensioners they don't know what to do. They know what scheme to play, so I can see them doing it.
Genuinely, it's such a hard group to call that because I think they're also. I think Belgium and Croatia are just massively overrated.
Who's Belgium's manager? Is it still Martinez? Or the chain? Hang on. Yeah, it's Martinez.
It's still. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's still Martinez. I can't remember him being sacked.
No, it's still Martinez. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, when you've got those, like I said, when you've got all those players and the way they played, they were lucky to get how far they got with the way they played. I'm surprised you still got the job.
They've still got some outrageous players, but I just think like a lot of them are getting on. Like they're not as good. Like, I mean, they've got a good. I think their best thing going for them is they've got Courtois because I think he's had an outrageously good year at Real Madrid. But I look at their defenders, I'm like Dendoncker and Boyata. I'm just like, hold on a minute. Because obviously Vertonghen and Alderweireld were there for ages, but they're getting on. Like, they're not the same sort of players. And then Witsel, he's 33. Carrasco's older. I don't know. For me, it's everything relies on Lukaku, and he's not had a good time of it. Like Batshuayi, I can't put any stock into him, I'm afraid. Hazard's not the same player. So it comes down to, I mean, Tielemans is decent. Obviously, Kevin De Bruyne is world class. I think it will maybe come down to how good De Bruyne is in this tournament. But again, in the last one, I don't think De Bruyne was good at all. I think he was very poor by his standards in the Euros. So yeah, I honestly see Belgium flopping massively. I think as the hype teams, I think Belgium are easily the worst for me. Even worse than the team that didn't make the World Cup, Italy. I think Italy are actually a much better team than Belgium, but unfortunately, them's the breaks, as Bozo would say. Yeah, that was sweet as a fuck. Is Italy not getting to World Cup? That was brilliant.
Can't admit that.
That was genuinely brilliant. It's just that meme of obviously Chiellini holding back Saka.
Saka wants it.
And then it's Chiellini holding back the Italian flag and from the World Cup. And it's just brilliant. So yeah, for me in that group, I've gone for Belgium, Morocco. I think you've gone for Croatia, Morocco, haven't you, Shard?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. What did you go for, Mark? Anything?
I said it's out of all the groups so far, this could just be anybody's, really.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on then. Group G.
Brazil.
This has got one of the favourites for the tournament in.
Yeah.
Brazil. I think Brazilian football is in the best spot it's been in for about 20 years.
They want revenge for what's happened over the last few tournaments. So
they have got some absolutely brilliant players. That's so exciting. So exciting. They topped the World Cup qualifying group, South American group, by a mile, by over 6 points over Argentina, and they had a 35 goal difference, Brazil. So they've been basically battering teams for fun recently. I mean, some of the players that Brazil have got are just mental, like Alisson, like Firmino, Richarlison, like just ridiculous players. I do expect Brazil to hard win this group. I honestly wouldn't want to face them if I was any team at this point. Vinicius Junior, mate. Like, whew, I really wouldn't want to play against any of these teams. And they've got the pedigree. They've got the Brazilian pedigree, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. They'll definitely be in the final. Unless they mess it up, they'll definitely be in the final.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, I don't think they're defensively the best. I don't think tactically they're the best teams, but they've got some really, really good players like Rafinha and even Fred plays well for Brazil. He's probably one of their better players. So, that group's just ridiculous. Like for me, Brazil, I think will just win every game. I think they'll win every game comfortably as well. I mean, Serbia, sort of the middle of the road European team. Like, not bad, not good.
They're not as good as they used to be. Put it that way.
They're not. No, they definitely used to have some better players.
Mm-hmm.
Switzerland. I mean, I think Switzerland. Was it they got in over Italy? Was it? I think.
Yes.
I think they beat Italy, didn't they, to get in?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, Switzerland. I don't think it'll be bad. I think they just beat Portugal in the Nations Cup, didn't they? I think they beat Portugal.
Not sure.
So yeah, I think Switzerland are dangerous. Cameroon got some decent players.
Again, a team that's not as good as they used to be.
Yeah, I think Cameroon definitely used to be a bit better than they are now, but they'll still be dangerous. I think Brazil will top this group comfortably for me. I think Serbia will finish bottom. And it's difficult to call between Switzerland and Cameroon. I think I've got to go for Switzerland now. I think knocking Italy out. I think they just beat Portugal. I think Switzerland will actually surprise. I think Switzerland will do all right. I think they'll do all right for me. Although this is one of them groups where anyone could get out realistically in second place. It wouldn't surprise me to see Serbia or Cameroon finish second at all.
I agree.
I think Brazil number one, Switzerland two for me.
Yeah, I think it's Brazil, and then it's a free for all after that, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
Definitely. Right, the last group. Now this is a really hard to call group. I think this is definitely up there. Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, and South Korea. Portugal, obviously, they've been tremendous, really, in the last sort of 6 years. Obviously, they won Euros, they've won the Nations League. They all seem to put up a decent fight in the tournaments. Like, they all seem to get to a quarter or a semi-final. Again, they've got another icon, Cristiano Ronaldo. obviously coming towards the end of his career now, but he's still one of them that inspires people around him. Just being on the pitch, raises the game. I think that's probably why they won the Euros that year over France. They weren't anywhere near as good as, but they just happened to play really well in that 1 or 2 games, that tournament. Mainly from Ronaldo, it was a bit like a cheerleader on the sideline because he went off injured, and he was like their manager, jumping up and down and sending instructions out. So I think Portugal, for me, you'd have to send them number 1. I don't really know too much about Ghana, if I'm honest. I know Tariq Lamptey plays for them. Naki Williams, he was the guy that's not missed a league game since 2016 in La Liga, which is ridiculous. Like playing 6 straight seasons without missing a league game as an outfield player is mind blowing to me. He's played like over 200 games in a row. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
But I don't really know too much about
Ghana.
Ghana.
Within itself, isn't it?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like no suspensions, no injuries. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't really know. Yeah, I don't know too much about Ghana. I mean, South Korea have got some decent players. Obviously, Heung-min Son, just the most obvious. But Uruguay are just one of those nations that are just. They just always seem to turn up and do all right in the tournament. They always seem to come, especially against the European teams. They always seem to do well against the European teams. They usually struggle against more their own sort of countries. To be fair, they do struggle against the Brazils, the Argentinas, but Uruguay is scary. To be fair, I wouldn't actually want to face Uruguay, if I'm honest. I don't really know too much about Ghana. South Korea, they've only really got the one man that's top draw. They've got a good industrial team though, South Korea. They work hard. They'll be hard to break down. I'm not sure for me. Portugal, I'd have to put in number 1 because it's just Portugal.
Yeah. Portugal, Uruguay for me, I think, because like you say, that they do always seem to do well against European sides.
Yeah, I could genuinely see him beating Portugal in that group.
Yeah.
I could actually see him finishing top Uruguay, if I'm honest. But I could see any of them teams going through. But I would have to say Portugal and Uruguay for me. I don't really know anything about Ghana, if I'm honest. I think they used to have some really top draw players. I'm not sure about now. They have got some recognised players. I'll just have a little Google. There we go. Here they got Suleimana, Thomas Partey, Andre Ayew, Asamoah Gyan. Jesus, these are blast from the past.
Yeah, I say World Cup 2010, and these are all like amazing players, and then they all ended up at Swansea or something like that.
Yeah.
But, I think we're being Ronaldo, and potentially will be Ronaldo's last tournament. I think
so.
Portugal are going to go all in, and then Uruguay will end up picking up the pieces from everyone else. So I think it'll be Portugal, Uruguay, Ghana, and then Korea, South Korea, should I say?
Yeah, I think so. It wouldn't surprise me if Uruguay beat Portugal.
Hit the nail on the head there, Rich.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't imagine like having been like the way he riled those players up for that Euro win.
Yeah, it's memorable. It was so memorable watching him on the touchline running around.
Mm-hmm. So I think he's definitely going to at least get to quarters with them. Depending on what everyone else does, but I feel like they will get to the quarters, and then that'll be it. But everyone wants Argentina, Portugal World Cup final, but you're not going to get it, unfortunately.
No, not a chance. I don't think.
No.
I can't see Portugal going to the final. I could maybe see Argentina getting
I think
there.
It could be an all South American affair, to be honest.
With the heat, I think it will be definitely.
Yeah,
Argentina, Brazil.
I think it sort of depends on what side of the draw you're on, because Argentina and Brazil, I don't know if they're on the same side of the draw, but they could end up being maybe semi-final opponents.
Well, yeah, so we always end up getting a really good semi-finals, like the best, and you wish that was the final, but you end up getting like, France, Croatia, or or Netherlands, Poland, or something. You'll end up getting some really random final, and then the semi-finals are insane.
Yeah. It normally does come down to which side of the draw who was on. Like I said, when Wales got to the semi-final of that Euros, like don't get me wrong, they did all right, but they had a pretty decent run, and then the first real proper good team they played, they lost. So I mean, same with England. Like
I was about to say that's exactly the same with Southgate.
Yeah, same
as
with
came
England.
with anyone.
They had a nice little run, and then they got to Croatia, and they should have won that, and then they didn't. So I mean, it was not as bad in the Euros, to be fair, this time round, because they did beat Germany. But again, like against Sweden, like they should be beating teams like this anyway. So, but yeah, I do expect Portugal, Uruguay to get out of that. But again, I think anything could happen from that group. Absolutely anything. But yeah, seeing as we're talking about finals, who do we think is going to win the World Cup?
Brazil. No question about it.
You think Brazil?
I think Brazil's got to be one of your favourites, hasn't it?
Yeah.
There's potential for 3 or 4 different sides. It's what team turns up on the tournament. We've seen it so many times where this team's doing really, really well, or that team's doing really, really well. Then they come to the tournament, and all of a sudden it's like they're struggling to string 2 passes together.
Yeah.
And they get railroaded by teams that they should be smashing every day of the week.
Yeah.
The tournament always invokes something in, especially the underdogs. The times, especially some of the African sides we've seen, teams full of farmers and not professional footballers and everything else, that all of a sudden are trancing the likes of Italy and Spain and France and there's this potential. Yes, you would expect Brazil to be there and win it. But it's a funny old game, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Brazil probably will be the favourites for the bookies. I think
favourite always wins. That's the stats. Like
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the world rankings, like obviously Belgium are second. But,
ignore that. That's.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think you're anything.
Ignore that. Belgium's been like in the top 3 for the last God knows how long.
I don't think you can read too much into that. I think it's because they win a lot of qualification games, and
that means
Belgium always get to the quarters and semis of tournaments. But again, like they never seem to look that good when they do it either. I think Spain, France, England, I think have all got a chance to win it. Outside chance of Germany, Portugal, Netherlands. I think they've got an outside shot just because they have got some really good players. I think from Europe, I think Spain, England, France are the European teams that are going to do the best. I think the Spain are really exciting. Obviously, France have probably got the best squad in the world, if I'm honest. Like in terms of pure depth, they could probably put about 4 or 5 different teams out that could get really far in that tournament. However, the heat, I think, will be a massive issue, regardless of it being in December. I think the heat will be an absolute massive issue for the European sides. I really do. I think Argentina and Brazil have got a bit of an advantage, I would say. If I were to pick an outside, if I were to pick an outside like one to watch for the World Cup, it'd be Spain for me. But if I were to pick a winner, I'd have to agree with Richard and go for Brazil. I don't think I could pick anyone else without kidding myself. Really, I think I'd have to go for Brazil to win the World Cup.
Yeah.
But as a team to watch for me, it's Spain. It is Spain.
I feel like a team to watch for me would probably be Uruguay. I think Uruguay will go pretty far.
Yeah, honestly, I think I could definitely see teams like Mexico and Uruguay potentially slipping into a semi-final. Like, honestly, I think Mexico are ridiculously underrated. Ridiculously underrated.
They ain't got Carlos Vela though, so we'll see that.
No, exactly. But they are ranked 12th in the world. So, no, it is a bit inflated because of where they play. Same with Uruguay because they're 13th and USA are 14th. But Mexico are no mugs. Neither are Uruguay. I think Uruguay will do all right. I genuinely do. What about you, Mark?
I think yeah, like I say, you've got to go. I think that South American region, they've always played the same sort of football. It's exciting football. It's with flair. Any of them have got potential on the day.
Yeah.
Where do you think England will come?
I mean, if a bit looks to this, I think England have got a really hard game if they win their group. But looks to it, and they're playing France. They're playing a crazy team in the last 16, I think. Or I think they've got the potential to play a big team. I'm not sure who it is though.
I think it's going to be a repeat of the 2002 World Cup when we end up playing Brazil and going out on penalties.
I'm not sure who England could get.
I think it'll be someone mad like
that. They do potentially get an absolute bonkers team in the last 16. Actually, I think it might be Germany or Spain.
Yeah, no.
And that's it. I'm pretty sure if England win their group, they've got a chance of an absolute nutty team. I'm not 100% sure.
It's because you're not getting through the groups, then, isn't
it? Yeah. Well, so it's a Group B second place plays Group A winner. A Group B winner plays Group A second place. So there is a chance where England could play Senegal or Netherlands in a last 16 game, which is so worrying.
Yeah.
That is worrying to me. If like a last 16 game against the Netherlands, for instance, imagine that. Even Senegal, I would be genuinely terrified to go into a last 16 game against Senegal, like in the blistering heat. I don't know.
So last 16 then. Looks like
well, I mean, England could do out, mate. Realistically, I think England could do. They could win it. They could do whatever they wanted to, but it all depends on how England react to being at a World Cup, react to the heat. I mean, it's halfway through the season, which is new, so England might be up to speed. They might be crisp because they've been playing Premier League football for 4 months. So I don't know. I really don't know, mate. Not sure. Not sure.
Who do you think will get Golden Boot?
I'm not really sure. I can predict it. To be fair, I honestly don't know. I honestly, genuinely do not know. I mean, anyone can miss it. I mean, Messi could have a good tournament. He takes their penalties. He could get a lot of goals. You wouldn't rule out Ronaldo getting a lot of goals. He takes their penalties. He gets a lot of goals from corners.
Yeah.
You can't rule Harry Kane out. Mbappe. Yeah, I can't. I'm just gonna say Harry Kane just because he won the last one.
Yeah.
I'll just say Harry Kane because he is one of the world's best finishers. I'll just say Harry Kane. But again, that could be anything. That's the most hardest thing to predict is the top scorer of this tournament, because unlike the Euros, there's just so many mad teams in it. It's so much harder to win the World Cup than it is the Euros, or the Copa America, or the AFCON. It's just so much harder. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if like the top scorer is just someone proper random, like I mean, if Poland get far, if Poland get like decent, Lewandowski, he might have a couple of really good games. Start banging some goals in.
I think it all depends on who you play in the groups. I think.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
if you have
yeah.
a big win, if France beat, I don't know, Australia 6-0 and Mbappe gets like 3 or 4, then you've got a massive like advantage already, haven't you?
Yeah.
But it could be someone really random, mate, like Morata or something for Spain. Like it just depends, doesn't it? It's really hard to predict, I think.
It definitely won't be Morata.
I mean,
it definitely won't be Morata.
Who knows,
No,
mate? Spain seem to use Morata like ridiculously well, and he's like he's really well respected in their team. I think Morata will probably start, or at least be there or thereabouts. So I think he was captain in the Nations League for him. But yeah, it could be anyone, mate. It could be anyone random.
Yeah.
So
I think we've just lost Mark. It looks like.
yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, I think we probably should just leave it there, mate.
Yeah, it's best time to end anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, we can't hear Mark, but you know, we got to almost the entire end.
Yeah. I'd say we're there, so.
Yeah. So it's not too bad. It's not. At least it didn't dip out in like the middle of it or whatever.
Yeah. Boom, boom. That's it. And he's gone.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Right. Okay. We'll stop it there then, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been good. Been good
thanks
again.
Thanks for coming on.
Anytime.
Always appreciate it. Thanks to Mark, even though he probably can't hear me. But yeah. So that's been episode 3, talking about the England women's game and the England men's game. We didn't talk as much as the women's as we probably should have done, but
No.
I don't think we know too much about that. But yeah, we might revisit it in future. See how their progress has gone, especially if, before the Women's World Cup. 100% do a little video about that. But yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. This has been it's been a spicy episode. To be fair, it's a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be this episode. But it's quite a lot to talk about, quite a lot to discuss. It's exciting to talk about the potential of going into a World Cup. Love a World Cup. Absolutely brilliant. The best thing to watch on TV. The best sporting event there is out there. So yeah, it's been really good. So if you liked it, leave us a like. Any comments, we'll get back to. All the socials will be down below in the description. And thanks for watching. See you next time.
See ya.